The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here!
Ready for action!
I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is the Angry Chicken, aka TAC, aka TAC, and it is a double-headed chicken today, not the normal three-headed Hydra that is TAC, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. Jocelyn has some awesome adult stuff she has to go do because they're buying a house, it sounds like. So congrats to her, but that's okay. Dills and I are here to hold it down in her stead. So welcome back, Dills.
What up, man?
Oh, you know, Hearthstone things.
Hearthstone things.
And
Hey, we got a lot to talk about, actually, considering I was thinking about the show yesterday and was thinking, we got nothing.
Yeah.
And then by today, there was like, no, we got stuff.
Yeah, it's, you know, me, as usual, not like, I don't always give the most upvoted things on Reddit as much weight as maybe I should. And you're like, hey, maybe we should talk about this one thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw that on Twitter. Did that make it on Reddit? And I go over there and I'm just like, oh, wow, over 2,000 upvotes. We should probably talk about this. So
it was a conversation. That's what we're going to have, too, which I think, though, I would like to have. Like, to me, what's interesting is how simplified the Reddit conversation gets. And that's why I think even when something has been hashed over on Reddit, I like us talking about it because I think we bring not the, it's definitely black. No, it's definitely white. Like that kind of conversation that you end up with.
We're
on
always
Reddit.
here to say, no, it's gray.
Yeah.
It's
It's
gray.
a combination of the two, maybe. Yeah. So, but Hearthstone, it has been really fun for me lately, too. And it's just funny to see the conversation being had by other people when I'm still thoroughly, like, it has leveled out. The meta has definitely leveled out. We just saw DreamHack, right? And not a lot of surprises.
No.
So,
No.
you know.
And this isn't me getting down on it at all. This is the natural progression of things, and I think actually we've had a longer tail on the end of Angora. I might say some might say a dinosaur-sized tail on the end of Angoro. But yesterday and over the course of the weekend, I felt a little bit like, oh man, I'm missing out on Hearthstone because I was so into the Heroes midseason brawl.
Oh yeah,
And
that makes sense.
And at the time, I was going to defend it with, well, I mean, this is the first time all 2017 we're having an international Heroes of the Storm tournament, so I'm clearly going to watch that over Hearthstone. But then today I went back and fired up the finals for DreamHack Hearthstone, and I don't feel I need to really defend myself because there weren't a lot of surprises. I think Angora's leveled out for the most part.
I am excited though for Seat Story Cup coming up because that's always just like a fun excuse to watch Hearthstone in like a different environment than you used to. DreamHack is very by the book, serious esports competition, and and I like that too. I obviously and I love the fact that DreamHack is like the only major Swiss tournament we still really seem to have. Lots of group tournaments, group stage tournaments in Hearthstone these days.
Yeah.
So I mean, it gives you something, but you're right. Like I turned on like the non-finals, like the Swiss stage stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I just watched all these decks like last weekend. I don't know if anyone's bringing anything really cool. I guess we get Sea Giant in our Evolve Devolve Shamans now, but that's,
Right,
that's not like game breaking.
That kind of that teching happens there, but and I think it's fine. And I'm glad you brought up Seat Story because I think I like Seat Story no matter when it is. But if I had to like say if I had to carve out a chunk of time, I would say I want Seat Story when I'm a little bored with the current esports meta because it's fun. It gets in there. It's you got your shirt untucked. It's a little. It's not as polished. Everyone's hanging out, having a good time. And so it adds this, extra layer on top of maybe a meta that is solved.
True, yeah. And the other thing for me, too, like I had a weird season this season so far where I just, like I said on last week's episode, And I expected this to happen, and it did happen. I got a bunch of tweets asking for the deck list. So check my Twitter feed. It's in there. But yeah, I just had like a weird run of good luck and whatever with that Paladin deck. But as I neared Legend, it did become stagnant, right? Like my win rate slowed down. And I think it was because I was running a lot more Hungry Crabs and running into a lot more mages and decks that just weren't fantastic matchups for it. So I stalled out a little bit, and that made me not super excited to watch Hearthstone just because I had that frustrated feeling around it.
I feel you, man. I'm there. Yeah. I'm there. I'm stuck in the teens again. The difference this month compared to last month is I'm actually trying. I'm actively trying to rank up and can't. So maybe. Well,
when I switched back to the Shaman deck, it suddenly seemed to work again. So maybe that's it might be just a cyclical thing, not necessarily.
I'm like breaking all the cardinal rules too. I'm deck swapping like crazy because it feels like nothing's really working when in reality I'm probably not logging enough games with any one deck to really give it an honest shake. I have given your Murloc Paladin deck an honest shake. I've logged at least 20 plus games with that without swapping, and it's technically positive, but I have gone nowhere.
Really? Yeah. Oh, actually, it definitely can do that. It feels like I certainly felt like I was getting not only like I think I was playing the deck well, but it was like one of those things where I think I got into the zone with a deck and then didn't have bad luck with it, right? Yeah. Like it wasn't like I was having amazing luck, like, oh my god, I top deck Megasaur every time on 4. It was just that I wasn't running into terrible matchups like over and over. And when I did, it was like, okay, I ended my my win streak. It's fine. We'll start a new one, and then we get back on the horse. It is a very like board dependent, curve dependent deck though.
Oh, absolutely. And I was running into a surprising amount of Miracle Rogues, Jade Druid, and Priests, which are not fantastic matchups for an aggro
Priest
Paladin.
Is tough. I like the Rogue matchup. I think I do pretty well in it because you can just pressure the hell out of them, right? Like if they have all of their curve pieces, yeah, you can't really deal with it. But if you could just 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, they just spend the whole game trying to they're just like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill all this stuff, and then they never actually get the chance to just sit there and draw a bunch, Quest Rogue is a great matchup too because same thing. You're just like, what up, dude? You don't got time to do nothing.
Yeah,
I want to bounce stuff. I'm killing you.
I was doing fine with Quest Rogue. It was specifically the Miracle Rogues that were giving me issue.
Interesting. We should play together with that deck. I'd like to see kind of, your thoughts on what.
Yeah, I'd like to figure the kinks out. I mean, like right out the gate, having never played it before, I constantly found myself not playing Tidecaller before killing something with my Finja. Because I haven't touched Finja since we I think spotlighted it like 2 months ago.
Yeah, and Finja wasn't really in a deck like this before either, and now it's like he wins you games you're not supposed to win, right? Yeah. Especially because there's so much aggro Druid, Flood Shaman, that in those games you're behind early because they just have more than you do, and then Finja just reverses that. Like it's also like, okay, and then I'll just calmly drop Finja on 5. And then on turn 6, I have a board full of Murlocs, and then I make them all have Divine Shields or something. And you're like, well, you lose. So he's super important just now because of just how much board presence is required in this meta.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, the Miracle Rose gave me a hard time. Jade Druid, definitely. Priests, it depended on what kind of priest they were playing, but for the most part, they were giving me hell. And then the second I was like, all right, I'm going to forget it. I'm going to go back to mid-range because I was doing well with that against Jade Druid, against Miracle Rogue, against Priest. Nothing but mages the second I swapped. So.
Oh, yeah. See, I found mages to be a little bit tough just because sometimes they have that exact draw where they play their ice blocks, and then on turn 9, they Alexstrasza you, and it doesn't matter what you do from that point, right? Unless you tech in an Eater of Secrets. You're just like, well, I can pop his block, but I know that next turn it's going to be Fireballs and Pyroblasts and stuff like that, and I'm just going to lose no matter what.
Yeah.
I feel like the other matchups, it's more like what I can do. I can change my play a little bit. I can alter what I'm doing to combat their strategy, but with something like that Gunther Control Mage, like their strategy just is what it is, and they don't really care what you're doing. They just go like, as long as I have this, as long as I can get my ice block up and go into turn 9 with my Alexstrasza, I will draw the burn I need. Primordial Glyphs will get you there, and like that's the one that I really struggled with, I think. But I think it's a really good deck, but it might be that it's swapping out, and it might not be. It might have had its day in the beginning of this season, and maybe things are shifting. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, not sure, but overall, I was still enjoying it. But just like when you're when I get to the point where I want to bite the bullet and just chain aggro games because I just want to rank up and it doesn't work, I'm just like, come on, Hearthstone. I'm never the aggro player. Give me this. But obviously, have to play better. So, yeah. So that's what I've been doing.
My headphones cut off. Oh no!
Oh no! We got a headphoneless Dills. Dills' ears are broken.
Why'd you do that? Headphones?
Are yours working now?
Hold on.
Oh, all right.
It's gonna happen. Give me a second. Oh baby,
this will be fun.
This is great audio for the podcast, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely made a cut.
Okay, we're back.
All right, cool. I made a cut for the audio version. Video version, not enough of you watch the video version. Sorry, you can deal with it.
Yeah.
You get Angry Chicken raw and uncut.
Oh jeez.
So hey,
nobody likes chicken raw and uncut.
No, they don't. Before we move on into news, a couple of things. Got some announcements for scheduling to get out of the way. Triple-headed chicken stream, as long as no big other life-changing adult events happen in any of the three of our lives, will be next Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/AMoveTV, and then the VOD will be up for patrons later that week. And we're tentatively scheduling an Angry Chicken recording for after it. We're not 100% sure we can actually make it happen, but we're going to try because that week is going to be crazy because we are traveling for Nerdtacular. So there will not be a normal Angry Chicken the Tuesday next week at the normal time. That will not be happening. Most likely getting an episode in the Monday before. So keep that in mind. But other than that, before we also get into news, we have a sponsor to thank, Dills.
That's right.
Yeah, .game domains are back this week. Go to get.game or just about anywhere domain names are available to go and register your .game domain. And they've got something a little special for everyone this week. We were mentioning over the past, I believe, like about a month and a half that they were going to be at E3. They were going to have a booth, and that if you went up and said hi to them, introduced yourselves, told them, you were a TAC listener, that they were going to have some stuff for you at the show. Well, if you didn't get to go, they have sent us a code. They have a special code for our listeners if you were unable to attend E3. If you use the code E3 2017 GAME, that's E3 2017 GAME, and use it at any of the participating domain registrars over at get.game, you will receive $75 off of your purchase of a .game domain. So if you are out there, you are developing a game, and you want to get that .game domain, go to get.game, use that code, save 75 bones. And you'll also support the show in the process because they'll be like, "Oh, hey, another person used that code from Angry Chicken."
That's awesome. Damn, that's $75. That's a big chunk, man.
Indeed, it is. Indeed, it is.
I was just looking up if you're getting ready for Nerdtacular and you want to show up, Utah.game, totally available.
You're just gonna put it on your business card and hand it out at Nerdtacular, like,
check out Utah.game.
I don't live here. I don't game here, but I got the domain.
But I'm here right now.
Exactly. Yeah. We thank them for their support. Now, let's get into this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
We got some more Hearthstone history from Ben Brode this week. Redditor TF Boy made a post saying that cards that add other cards to a deck are some of my favorite cards in Hearthstone, and it prompted Ben Brode to get in there and give us another little kind of peek behind the curtain history lesson of Hearthstone that could have been. He said that it was a funny story about Forgotten Torch. He said it was actually one of the major mechanics of League of Explorers until they focused more on Discover. He said that it was really the best design of the cycle. He said, I think we had a priest card that was 2 mana called Mysterious Book, where you drew a card and it shuffled an awesome book into your deck, and that awesome book was a 2 mana card that drew 3 cards. He also said there were other shuffle-ins as well. However, only Torch, Elise, and Tomb, and Ancient Shade survived the cut.
Interesting. These are kind of cool cards. I like the fact, and it's weird because with the amount of random card generating effects there are, it's kind of strange that none of those are generate a random card and put it into your deck, right? Every single time you put a card into your deck, you know what you're going to get. Now, obviously the Ungoro pack itself is random, but that gives you this range. It's going to be Ungoro cards. and you have to also like draw the pack to then go into the random phase of it.
Yeah.
But these cards are really, like, I really do like the fact that Forgotten Torch is like, here's a bad card that turns into an exceptionally above average card later on in the game. So if you can build a deck that's built around lasting for a while, then your power level of your deck increases, right? So it's like you start with a weaker deck and increase the power of your deck as the game goes on and build a deck around that idea, right? So I think that's cool. Oh, they didn't talk about Prince Malchezaar, though, huh? Yeah, Prince Malchezaar. That's 5 random cards.
Yeah, I guess he was talking specifically about League of Explorers, though. And
okay, yeah,
Malchezaar was a Karazhan card, so maybe that's why. Yeah. But I mean, maybe that came up in the comments below it. I'm sure it did because this is the internet, and everyone has to be the first to point something out that you missed. But
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought this was cool too. By the way, feel free to every mage card that discovers a card, feel free to just change it so that it shuffles the card you choose into their deck. I'd be totally okay with that. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just keep the same mana cost.
But just for mages.
We're good to go.
Just for mages.
Sure. There's actually, I was reading Reddit too, and somebody, it's funny because you know, sometimes you do think of Reddit as this big, like, it's just one giant dumb guy, right? But it's really just a whole bunch of dumb guys all put together.
And gals, let's be.
Yeah. Okay. But like, I'm just saying, like, there's this feeling that it's like one kind of autonomous being, right? Where the subreddit thinks this. There was the same thing on the subreddit about somebody saying that they hate the fact that there's all these cards that add cards to your deck, so that sometimes if you play Priest, you play 40 cards in your deck, and I only played 30, and that's not fair. And they clearly don't understand that having less cards would probably actually be better, but
it would. And like, where is it really unfair? Yeah. It's probably only unfair in a fatigue versus fatigue matchup, but then you built your fatigue deck wrong. So
exactly, if you have that matchup, you shouldn't. By the way, if you have a 25 card deck, you should never go to fatigue because you kill the other guy. But yeah, it's like objectively better. It's like proven to have less cards in your deck. But it's just kind of funny that there's that dichotomy of opinion, right? And you still sometimes forget that. But I love the fact that Ben Brode reads stuff like this and then doesn't just go, "Oh yeah, I like that too." He goes, "Let me just give you a little insight into our thinking at the time."
Yeah, no, it's like we get a Ben Brode interview by surprise when this kind of stuff happens. Because like when we have them on, yes, we obviously want to grill them about what the next thing's going to be, but we always ask questions basically hoping for story time. I want story time. I want Ben Brode to sit there and spin me a yarn about developing this game that we play. So I always enjoy seeing this stuff.
And I admit too that I gave him a little crap about their communication levels compared to other games from Blizzard, but this is the kind of stuff that you got to get commended for too. Like if I'm gonna crap on you for not having professional style videos, a la Overwatch, then I got to give you credit for going onto the subreddit and giving cool, honest answers too. So,
oh yeah,
works both ways. Oh, someone also mentioned Beneath the Grounds. That's a good point too. Beneath the Grounds, interesting.
Yeah, but it shuffles it into your opponent's deck, not your own. So maybe that wasn't also technically
Weasel Tunneler. There's all these cards that do this. It's great.
I love Weasel Tunneler.
You know what's funny is like this is another thing. I like this mechanic and I hope that it sticks. Like we get a lot more of it. It is something you can't really do in Magic, right? Like I can't be like, okay, when this card dies, I put it into your deck, and then you're like, oh yeah, you have a red sleeve and I have black sleeve, so I know exactly where that card is. I know exactly when I drew it, right? Like you physically can't.
No, you just have to write the card differently. Like unsleeve your card, put it into your opponent's extra sleeve, and then shuffle into your opponent's deck. So you can have the wild and free cats, your sexy anime lady. What else? Brian Kibler. You know, whatever.
By the way, they are adding a heal to full card in Magic in the new set.
Very cool. Man,
I can't remember what it is. It's like 3 mana heal to whatever your starting amount of health was. So if you were playing like Commander, you would heal to 40. I'm guessing. It's 2 white or 1 white mana, 2 regular, or 2 white mana, 1 any. I don't know. Can't remember exactly. But the downside isn't that you have to like build your deck a certain way. The downside is tap all of your lands the next turn or something like that. So you essentially like miss your next turn.
You need to stop, Dels. Man, I haven't played Magic in so long, and we're at that point in Hearthstone meta where I'm just like, yeah, other card games. That looks really cool right now. It's like you know, that phase in World of Warcraft where you're like, yeah, other MMOs. Let's see what Guild Wars 2 is up to nowadays.
Sure. Well, we're going to talk about that again in a little bit when we talk about some more stuff.
That's
going on in Hearthstone. But
absolutely.
Other card games are definitely on the surface right now. As far as what people are talking about.
Well, let's move right into it.
Let's do it.
One of the big discussions being had right now, and we kind of hinted at it at the top of the show, is Twitch viewership for Hearthstone. Specifically, kind of the catalyst for this discussion was that yesterday, Hafu tweeted that recent statistics were, quote, concerning for the viewership of Hearthstone. She said, love the game, but we need more frequent updates. Charts are for the past 30 days. And she tweeted out this example of statistics from multiple popular streamers. Let me just grab it right here and just pull it up. It's not going to look too pretty.
But it's basically like all of the most like top streamers at any given time. So yeah, like Crip, who's on in the middle of the night for me, Tice, who's on in the morning, Dog is generally on in like the evenings, Toast will be on around the evenings, Savitz and Amaz will be on like more during like the middle of the day for me. So this kind of covers all the times that people are on.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a general picture if you were to look at it of just not, because you could say maybe sometimes, oh, there's a lot of people streaming League of Legends at that time. Like you can't really give that picture. You have to kind of give a larger chunk. So it looks damning, right? Bunch of things going down.
It does if you look at just that graph.
Yes.
And then, so that made its way to our Hearthstone, where it currently has over 2,500 upvotes. When I checked it this morning, it was just shy of 1,000 comments. Wouldn't be surprised if it finally crested that. Whatever the case is, a lot of discussion, obviously, being had around this. The comment that I found the most interesting, and apparently Reddit agreed with me because it is the top comment on it, is or one of the top comments is Brian Kibler replied with his own kind of chart detailing a much longer span of time for Hearthstone overall, specifically from mid-2015 until yesterday, which paints, I think, a much better picture. And I don't think it's going to translate that well here. I'm pulling it up just for the sake of it, but
it's small, but you can at least see the spikes are there, right? Yeah. So the one issue that I have with this graph from Kibler is we need to go in a little deeper so we can really see. So what is the depth of the valley, right? Like we see the peaks, and we do see that Ungoro had the largest peak, right? That's probably like the day it was dropped.
Yes.
Was definitely the most hype that we'd had. Tons and tons of people. And it was the same for me. Like, I mean, I had more people in my chat that day watching my stream. More people, I think, watching. We were streaming the 3, triple-headed pack opening. I think we had more people watching that than in the past. So there definitely was a larger peak, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks kind of like maybe the valley is slightly deeper than what we got to towards the end of like the last cycle, and a little faster. So that could be a thing.
Okay, so I threw this in the Photoshop, and because this graph was driving me bananas from Brian Kibler. It only has lines for 50,000 and 100,000 horizontally across it. So and nothing else. So to the best of my ability, I went into Photoshop. I made a little block that spanned from 0 to 50,000, and I made sure that the distance from 50,000 to 100,000 was the same, which it was. It was equidistant. So you can then assume that little block I made was worth 50,000. And then I just started playing around with it in percentage and figuring out what the distance from 50,000 to the lowest peak was. And it came to the realization that it looks like the lowest ever it got estimated was around 20,000 viewers, average. 20,000 average viewers. The lowest peak, which looks like it was as of yesterday, or the lowest valley, was around 34,000. However, what your question was, is it lower than the dip after the last run of cards? And it certainly is.
Or something like
it is. It absolutely is. But I think the big thing here is if you go and you look, and again, I'm not going to pull it up here. It's so long it doesn't translate to the 16:9 ratio if you're watching on video. But if you can find it, go look up Brian Kibler's Twitter account. Go look up this thread on Reddit. We have it linked. If you look at it, there is a long span of time for each expansion that is covered here. And frankly, we haven't had enough time since Ungoro, I think, to really look at this and say, is it better, is it worse, or is it the same as every single damn thing that came before it?
Yeah. I think the real question here is there any cause for alarm, right? If you were somebody who's making money based on the game of Hearthstone and you start to see this dip, and I think there's probably more to what really prompted Hafu to tweet about it. I think that was what I thought was interesting, was that this is the first time I'd really seen somebody bring it up as, oh, this might be a potential problem, right? Because she is somebody who I think is making the bulk of her living due to playing the game of Hearthstone right now, right? And if that's your bread and butter, and it's ours too. I mean, I pay attention to this stuff.
I'm looking at our podcast numbers right now, and yes, there was a peak around April 5th, and we have consistently been going down since April 5th.
Sure. And I think that reflects, people get into the game, people wane from the game. And that's something that kind of is how games work, especially games with content cycles, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not really the issue, but I think she probably noticed maybe revenue wasn't as high as in the past or something like that, right? And that's maybe what prompted her to go dig a little deeper and look in the numbers. Maybe this hadn't been an issue that had come up for her in the past. Or maybe in the past, she just stopped streaming, because I have noticed that her streaming was a little sporadic during certain periods. Maybe she's still streaming regularly, but it's going down too, right? So there's a lot of things that we don't really know about what prompted her to kind of bring it up. Kibler's always like the level-headed guy who like understands. He's been in the game for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. You watch his stream and you say, how come you don't get all pissed off about bad RNG like other streamers? He goes, dude, I've been playing card games since I was 16 years old. I've lost because of RNG enough times to understand it's going to happen again, right? It's not a big deal. So I expect this response from him. I'm curious, now, what other streamers really have to say about it, because I did agree with what Savitz had said, and I think we talked about on this show maybe 2 weeks ago that in between cycle time, right? This time we're in right now, it'd be really cool if this is when other little bits of content came out. Like we talked about, I think I had someone email about what if you released 5 cards, right? Well, what if this was when you put out the Heroic Tavern Brawl, which happened, 2 weeks into the expansion when nobody was really hurting for stuff to do, right? What if now is when the Heroic Tavern Brawl comes out? What if now is when they release the deck feature? What if now is when they, do all the other little things, and it feels like content, and it softens this blow? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. The Heroic Tavern Brawl timing is something I have a great deal of opinion about, and it's basically what you just said. It's like, who thought this was the good time to put this out? wait until the coast is clear.
Exactly. Let everybody just have their fun on ladder, because I think it is true. There's another comment in this on the Twitter thread from Brian Kibler that said, it's not just the game. We as streamers can be doing more than what we do, which is basically I log in and then I just play on the ladder, right?
Right.
And I think if you're a fan, if you're not a fan of that person in particular, I think, a guy like Day 9 probably isn't seeing a lot of waning in his audience because people tune in for him, right? They don't really tune in for the game.
And the weird decks he makes and stuff like that. Like if you set yourself apart from the pack, and this is funny because now we're just getting into how to be a content creator, how to start your first thing on the internet ever. But if you find a niche, because if option 1 when starting content from scratch on the internet is just do it for the alpha or the beta of a game that just came out day 1. Just be the first. Just be the first out there because someone's going to be looking for content. Option 2, if you're going to enter a crowded market, is set yourself apart from the herd in a good way. Normally, you wouldn't do that in nature because you would be eaten by lions. But in here on the internet, it's a very good thing because you start getting eyeballs, you start getting noticed. So start making wacky decks, start going into arena with a theme, start, find ways to really have fun within the confines of the game. But obviously, I don't think
something I've been trying to do, and it is difficult because the game does feel like it limits you to this one way to play, right? Like I'm either that night I'm choosing to play arena or I'm choosing to play ladder, right? And it feels like if I had more options, there would be a lot more stuff I could do.
Right.
And so one thing I've been doing is, like Dill's Hearthstone League matches. I'm casting those. I'm like casting other guys play matches and stuff by myself as content. I'm playing my match or something like that, or I'm doing a sealed match for money against somebody. Like I'm trying to find other things to do, but it is difficult when the game does feel like there's only a few buttons to push here. So I got to really get creative, Yeah. We saw the release of Omnistone recently, which I don't know if you've been paying attention to. It's like a new show with Kibler, Frodan, and Firebat, and very similar to it's very podcast style show. But then at the end they do like whose meme reigns supreme, right? And then they make a meme deck and play against each other. That kind of stuff seems like it's just not really happening from all these streamers. And I think if you look at the streamers Hafu kind of picked to highlight, outside of maybe Disguised Toast, who does a lot of meme decks, most of these guys just like sit there and play Hearthstone all day, right? I mean, that's their content.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not
excited about the game, you're not going to watch that.
If we want to get into the nitty gritty of specific suggestions, and I don't want to retread because I feel like the last 2 weeks we spent a lot of time talking about our hopes and dreams for additional arena modes, tournament mode, all that kind of jazz. But one of the ones that just popped into my head, if we want to laser focus in on something I've thought of, and this goes back to I think the very early days of this podcast, and it's something we had suggested, and thinking of Day 9 makes me think of it because of how he got started in the StarCraft game. If Hearthstone had replays, I think that would open up at least a streamer and just overall Hearthstone content creator ecosystem widely, because things like meme decks and telling your audience, hey, go out and try this. I want you to go out this week and win a game with the Angry Chicken. Wouldn't it be cool if people could do that and just send in a replay, and then you could watch the replay, commentate over it. You could do coaching shows. All I can think of is like all of the stuff that Kyle does for Heroes of the Storm, where he analyzes other people's replays, goes through it, that kind of stuff. And that's what Day 9 was doing with StarCraft 2 when that originally kind of got up and going. It's absolutely true. And you could have tournament, like right now, one of the big kind of negatives for me and doing the Dill's Hearthstone League casting is I have to schedule it when they're playing, right? It would be fantastic if I could just tell everybody, like, hey, you want me to cast your match? Submit it here, and then I will come on stream and cast it for you. It's one of those things that there's other third-party functions that kind of do it, but it's not the same, right? You can do it through Hearthstone Deck Tracker, but it's like you're just watching like a step-by-step replay of like a chess match or something, and it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. You don't get the animations. You don't get all the other stuff that makes Hearthstone so great to watch. It doesn't look right. Yeah. And yes, people could record their games and send them in, but then you're going to get varying degrees of quality. You also have the issue of space. That many videos that sent in can cause all kinds of issues. And I think it just boils down to, I mean, there's a lot of, I think, crossover here with the tournament mode discussion, right? It's like, yes, there are ways to go and have that experience as it stands right now. But is it user-friendly? Does it have the Blizzard polish? No. Not at all. Actually, the exact opposite. You have to bend over backwards. You have to go out and deal with random chuckleheads that, to varying degrees of quality and how they handle these type of events. And I think it's the same thing with wanting to do any type of user-generated content as a creator. So I think the easier Team 5 could make that for us, the more you will see of not only that type of content creation, but more varied content creation overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's another few factors to the potential reasoning why there might be a dip in Hearthstone. PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds has just come on like a firecracker, right? Like,
absolutely.
Hit the ground running as far as viewership is concerned.
And that's I mean, Lord, that's not even a direct competitor. If you want to start talking about competing games, Hearthstone has, it's like for the first time in its history, true, honest to God, multiple direct competitors. And they're... Yeah,
although like Gwent is not necessarily pushing. It's not like Gwent is coming out on top of Hearthstone. It's not like all of those games, it's just, I think the fact that collectively there's a bunch more, right?
Right.
So there is Shadowverse, there is Gwent, there is Eternal, there is now, and when Hearthstone first hit, none of those games existed, right? Like, so it had the slot.
I mean, Hex was in its like early beta stages, and they were getting sued by Wizards.
Sure.
And but
I mean, there's other games that are. I think Overwatch has hit its stride a little bit as far as Twitch numbers are concerned. Obviously, League of Legends, Counter-Strike. I'm actually gonna pull it up right now. Yeah, Hearthstone is right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th place, and for a long time, you knew that Hearthstone was going to sit comfortably right behind League of Legends and Dota every single time, right? So I think there's multiple factors going on. I also do think that I tend to find myself watching more and more stream highlights on YouTube rather than watching the live stream, because the live stream is long and who knows if you're going to get any good stuff. I mean, streams are great to have on in the background, but I'm not one of those people who's engaged typing in chat the whole time. I pay attention here and there. The YouTube highlight will give me everything I really kind of wanted to see in like a 10-minute video, right? So
yeah, I'm straight up just the wrong person to ask. I have very little interest in random streamers stream. I go to Twitch for large events. I don't usually sit there and tune in to just a Maz doing his grind. It's just not for me. I'd rather I prefer curated there's a start point and an end point type of content. I'm still a big podcast.
That's why though these guys will, I think, have a lot more like peaks and valleys. The people like that. Like I know you don't pay much attention, but I kind of like turn Twitch on every now and then. I don't have cable or anything at home, so I have to seek shows out, or a lot of times I'm working or something like that, and I just need something to kind of be on in the background. So Twitch is a great thing for that. And I notice, a guy like Forsen was getting 15,000 people a year ago or whatever. And now, no, I don't even see his name near the top very often. And, I think that it's because that style of streamer is going to be fun for a while. It's going to have its hardcore audience. But, yeah, the game itself is going to dictate quite a lot of whether people are actually interested in the content or not, right? Like, I'm amazed that Crip still has the audience he has. I have a theory on him, though. I think people just like to put him on and fall asleep because he comes on so late. So, like, his chat is very, very popular, and a lot of people in there. But I think that his numbers will kind of always be there because he's created this like little niche for himself. Doesn't matter what game he's playing, really. But it's like there's streamers that have to find their way in that world where the game matters. And then there's a guy like Day9 who comes on for like only a few hours and splits it up with breaks and tells stories and all that kind of stuff. And his numbers don't ever really seem to change. They're just kind of always in that 5K range, right? So
yeah, and it's I mean, then there's a whole layer on top of this, right? Which I think is the discussion of how sustainable is streaming culture. I mean, I've seen so many articles lately talking about that. I personally have always had that in the back of my mind because I always thought to myself, well, should I get into the streaming game? And I personally have always decided no, that it's wrong for me. Because
it's something you shouldn't rely on, I think, as like, I'm going to do this in 10 years. I'm going to retire based on streaming income, right?
Yeah, it would be very difficult for the way I want to live my life. I want to live my life where 5 o'clock comes and I can walk away, go be a husband, go watch Breaking Bad with Katie, make dinner, go for a run, mow my lawn. All that kind of stuff. I always try as much as I can to do that. That's why you don't usually see me ever around on weekends doing anything. Short of stopping by maybe this weekend to Cast Taco. We'll see what happens. But yeah, and I mean, that's me. That's my personal take. But I think there's a big discussion to be had there. I don't necessarily think one is better than the other. I think there's absolutely room for the day-night approach, where you come on at a certain time, stream for a certain amount of hours, call it a day. There's definitely, I think, room for the other, which is on as much as you possibly can be. Get in trouble for streaming from your car. Get in trouble for streaming from the shower because you're naked. Yeah. I don't know. That kind of stuff as well. I think there's room in the universe for both, and I'm not passing judgment on either, except for what I think is correct for me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think that there's a lot of people who are streaming now and they're young, and it's working, and they got big because a lot of it does have to do with: are you on at the right time? Are you playing for Legend? Are you kind of funny here and there? Somehow some people you get hosted one time and suddenly you get an audience. There's a lot of people who just kind of, they said, oh, this is working this way, and they never really put much more into it, And so when the game goes up and down, and we'll see another spike as soon as the next content spike comes along, the next cycle starts. But those people, I think, are the ones who are going to slow down and eventually just kind of move on to other things. And I think the people who treat it more like a profession and continue to kind of push the envelope of what you can do with streaming, I think those people are going to keep thriving. I think they will be fine as far as streaming is concerned. Like sometimes I think about like for this show too. It's if we just do the exact same show we did the first time we ever did this forever, and we never kind of like continue to evolve ourselves and how we think of the game, and that it's going to slow down. It's going to eventually, peter out. So with any kind of content creation, you have to stick with it. You got to be on top of what's young and hip. You got to get a fidget spinner out from time to time. You know what I mean? be part of the new trends.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a stupid example. But like a guy like Kibler seems to stay on top of things. A guy like Day9 seems to stay on top of things. And then some guys just kind of sit there and play Hearthstone.
Well, and they also seem to find a balance for what works for them versus, I think, just beating their head against the wall, and when it does change, not changing with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's this is a weird comparison, but I kind of want to bring it up just because it's been so heavy in the news lately. Is that all this stuff about coal jobs, right? And we got to bring them back and blah blah blah.
Oh God, where are you taking this?
Things.
Oh, this is such
political.
Dangerous.
I know
this is such a dangerous conversation to be having, Dills.
No. But I'm not going to go deep into whatever. But what I'm saying, what I'm going to say, is that in the world, industries come and go, right? And streaming was super hot, and it may just go. Like when some other form of like entertainment comes along, there may be like nothing you can really do to prevent it from going. And that's like me being in my 30s now, like I've seen some of these things come and go, right?
Yeah.
Touring in a band used to be a thing. Nobody freaking does that anymore. You just put your record out on the internet,
But
like,
people still tour. People totally still tour.
Once they're big, you don't see the guys in a van just riding around the country as much as he used to. That used to be how you got big. Now you get big by having your song on like a SoundCloud and getting discovered, right?
All right.
I'm just saying, like the way things happen changes, and you got to be ready to like change along with it.
There is a counterpoint to that though, and you can look at our bread and butter, podcasting. Yes,
podcasting.
You stream a lot. You stream a lot, Dills. I know. So you're one of two worlds. But podcasting.
But I only started streaming because of podcasting, right? Like it was literally because I already had people who knew about me from this. I couldn't play Hearthstone at the time, and we're like, "Will you stream it so we can watch it?" Like it, that was an evolution in what I was doing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, but where I was going was, if you go and you talk to like someone who watches Twitch all the time and you try to explain, a lot of them probably don't even know what a podcast is. A lot of them probably show up to our show on Twitch, look at 67 viewers and just move on because it must not be that big.
Yeah, probably nobody cares about this.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. And then you rewind a couple years ago when Serial came out and every damn blog you went to, the return of podcasting is back, and we're all sitting here like it never went anywhere. Also, Patreon's a thing. It's better than it's ever freaking been.
Yeah, like we were doing fine. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. I don't think Twitch is going to go the way of the dodo. Overall, streaming is going to be great, and I don't think Hearthstone streaming is going to die. Will it be as big as it was around launch? Probably not. We'll see what happens. Maybe they do a large overhaul, introduce multiple new things to the game where it feels completely new, do like a Heroes 2.0 type update. Who knows? I can't see into the future. But I think there will always be an audience for this game. There's always going to be a sizable audience for this game. And I would point to another Blizzard product, Heroes of the Storm, to as proof of concept that, like, hey, a niche audience can still be a thriving ecosystem, because Heroes of the Storm is a much smaller audience by comparison to every other MOBA in existence and every other Blizzard game basically in existence, and yet it's still a very healthy place to be.
But here's what will happen though. If Hearthstone really does drop a significant amount of overall viewership, we're essentially just gonna like drop, like we're gonna cut some fat. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. Like, and that's what I'm like when I'm trying to compare it to other things in life, right? Like when I bring up the Cole thing or bring up the bands, like there's less. Yes, there are still bands jumping in a van and hitting the road. There just aren't as many, right? Mm-hmm. There used to be a time where that was a sustainable way to be in an independent band, right? You could actually make enough to pay for your gas, go around the country, get home, and do it again, right? You could do that if you sold enough shirts and you hawked enough CDs and you slept on enough floors instead of getting hotel rooms.
Yep.
You could make it work. You cannot make it work anymore. So a lot of those bands are just now, like the ones that weren't making it are not doing it anymore, and they're off doing something else, right? And whether that's, you know, making music still on their own in their house or whatever, or going on other jobs, whatever. We're going to lose a bunch of the excess Hearthstone streamers that are kind of like on the sidelines, and then the guys who are innovating and doing something interesting and actually making quality content, those are the ones who are going to stick around. So if you are that person, you have nothing to worry about. But if you're not that person, I really hope that a lot of those people start to adapt. That's what I think really is going to happen. It's like adapt or perish, right?
And always choose Death Rattle, summon 2/1/1s.
Summon 2/1/1s, yeah. Well, sometimes poisonous is real good. You playing that Silence Priest? You want that poisonous, man.
Oh yeah, well, definitely.
Kill that 4/8 with a 1/1. Hell yeah.
Most of them. I was going with the one that in my head was just generically usually the best.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, it's, you know, that's kind of like the button on this conversation is just that there's going to be some changes, I think. And I don't think this dip is the one that signals the end. But if you can't deal with the dips, then it's probably not going to be like a good profession for you, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, we had our concerns going in when we started the show. We thought it was going to be every other week, maybe twice a month, and we've managed to keep it going weekly. I think with minor areas where the show may have hit some bumps.
Sure. And I think, you know, like we definitely have to pay attention to current patron numbers and things like that and recognize when it's time to shift something there too. We've had to do that. So
absolutely,
we've definitely had to adapt, and the other people are going to as well. And like that's when Kibler came out, was like, yeah, it's fine. Like I think he's doing fine because that guy is like on top of his stuff, right? But if you're just sitting in a room streaming every day, you might not. You might be thriving right now. You might be hoping for some new content to come real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So also, I want to revisit this freaking chart after all 3 expansions are out this year, because looking at the chart as it was like probably the most surprising thing was, wow, there was almost no change around an adventure release, and we aren't going to have any more adventure releases. It's going to be all expansion from here on out. So
Blizzard had to look at adventure releases and say, like, that was one of the factors, was this is just not doing enough to stir the pot, right? You know, all the people who are sad about it, I think you'll see the light after this full year is up, that the adventures were just not doing enough for the game.
Yep, we will know. Well, let's take a break before we move into this week's strategy segment. And there's a guest. There's a guest here. Just you'll see. Well, hey, Jocelyn. I know you weren't on the show today, but
sorry, guys.
yeah, sorry, but you're here now before you leave to go deal with important adult things like buying a house. But
yeah, adulting sucks, guys. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, it can be rough.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of which, you know what else is a really annoying part of adulting? It can be traveling. It'd be so much nicer if there was like a way to alleviate at least a small portion of the anxiety of traveling. Almost as if it'd be nice if someone out there made some luggage that made you excited to pack it.
Exactly, that could maybe like charge my phone at the same time, so I never ran out of things to do on a really long flight, because not all of them actually have the ability to charge your phone when you're in the air. So yeah, I'm really excited because the away luggage that I got, I'm actually going to get to use it on my first plane, and so I've started packing it and charging it, and it's super easy. It comes with basically what looks like a cell phone charger, and you just like plug your luggage into the wall, like no big deal. I'm like, I opened everything up and I started, and I'm like, really? This is it?
Well, boy, it sure is.
My dad could do this.
That's kind of mean to your dad, but okay.
He's not a tech person. He doesn't even own a cell phone. Like, doesn't have an email address.
Remind me to loop back to this at a later date and ask you how your father survives without a cell phone. But that is neither here nor there. Boy, we sure are lucky. We sure are lucky then, Jocelyn, because this episode of The Angry Chicken is sponsored by Away Luggage, which you can find at awaytravel.com/TAC. I'll say it again, that's awaytravel.com/TAC. Almost like I'm trying to convince our listeners out there to punch that in to their URL browser on whatever device they might be using, possibly charging on their Away Luggage right now, and which would mean you already have one, but maybe go there and buy another one.
Well, they're so good, you could use more than one. I mean, really and truly. I'm actually at the point now of packing for Nertacular, and the inside of the luggage is so freaking cool because it's got this like whole section where I can put like my shoes, and then it's got like a laptop sleeve thing, and it's got spots for my clothes. There's even a water resistant, not waterproof. You can't like pour liquid in it, but you can't carry on liquid anyway, so it's fine. But you can put like wet bathing suits in it, and it won't get the rest of your clothes wet. It's so cool.
As always, not only is awaytravel.com supporting this episode, but they're also giving a code away for all of you Angry Chickens out there listening. If you want $20 off of a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com/TAC and use the promo code TAC. It's that simple. TAC, TAC for the Angry Chicken. You get it by now. But we thank them for sponsoring. And Jocelyn, good luck not pouring water in your suitcase and getting stopped by the TSA. But hey, at least
it's a struggle, Garrett. It's a struggle.
Yeah, at least your combination lock will be approved, even though they'll hold it and be like, "Ma'am, why is there a small swimming pool inside your suitcase?"
None of your damn business. Let me on the plane.
And that's how you don't get past TSA.
Yep.
We thank them for their support. We thank you all for going to awaytravel.com/TAC and using that code. All right, back to the show.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
All right, welcome to this week's strategy discussion where Dills and I sat and realized we've talked about most of the decks that interest us so far from Ungoro, and Dills, you had a cool idea today to go to hsreplay.com and take a look at the top cards that are the top of the deck win rate.
Yeah, the top cards specifically from the Ungoro set, because it was, it is true. We've definitely leveled off. The meta has settled essentially on kind of a top 5 or 6 decks, I think, that we generally see. Unfortunately, at this point, Hunter and Warlock seem to be just out in the cold. But you kind of now have your basic meta that I think we're going to see without too many changes, other than some tech choices here and there, and the kind of normal. Like things kind of will change slightly as the this week it's definitely Mage is most popular, so Eater of Secrets comes in, things like that, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we're going to see probably until the next content release, unless something else drastic happens, right? Unless somebody comes up with some amazing new deck that no one ever thought of. But it's interesting to look now at what the top cards are from Ungoro based on their deck win rate, and a lot of these are basically all from one deck, which makes sense, right? Because this is the deck that's utilizing the most Ungoro.
Right.
And it made the most difference. Like, Paladin was near the bottom in the previous set, and is suddenly, like, at the top of the meta, right? So it makes sense that the Paladin deck has the most representation here, as far as cards that suddenly have good win rates.
Yeah, at least at
but there's a couple of surprises, too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we should just get a disclaimer out of the way. Like, the stats we are looking at are just a sample of overall Hearthstone players. It is not the entire player base. Only Blizzard has access to those stats. So these are only from players who have opted in to upload their results to Hearthstone replays.
How HS Replay works is they basically use a few different deck trackers, and they just compile all that data. Mm-hmm. That being said, this is still a pretty good size here. And I encourage everybody to go check this site out if you haven't, if you didn't know about it. It gives you decks. It gives you other versions of the deck. It shows you like win percentage of that deck. And unless you use a premium version, basically what you're seeing is all the way from 25 to Legend and always over the last 14 days. So that's the data we're looking at. Last 2 weeks of data across all ranks of Hearthstone right now in standard ranked play. So, but there's a lot of games played here. I mean, it is, you're right, it's not Blizzard sized, but 660,000 games played with the #1 card, Gentle Megasaur. that's pretty good, right?
Yeah. And then we go look at the Hydrologist, 1,300,000 games. Or
sure.
Well, not necessarily.
And Hydrologist is in more Paladin decks, right? That's why there's going to be more games of it. Because it's in the control style, it's in the aggro style, and it's in the mid-range Murloc style. Right?
Hydrologist is just best buds with Uther and Liedrin. They hang out on weekends. They go to bars together. They're inseparable.
So one thing that's interesting, though, is when you look and you see Gentle Megasaur is at the very tippy top, that to me tells me that that version of Paladin that plays Gentle Megasaur is the best version right now, right? Like, that is the best version to be playing. There's another interesting stat if you look just over to the right there, where played win rate. This is every time the card is played, what was your actual percentage, right? Like, did you win the game more when you're played? And there's a couple of interesting things here where you can look and see that even though the deck win rate of, like, Primal Fin Totem is 55%, its played win rate is only 50%, right? So it's not the key card in that deck. It's just that that deck is actually a really good deck. This is the Bloodlust Shaman style, the Bloodlust Evolve Devolve Shaman.
Yeah, we've been calling it Token
not the
Shaman.
key card,
Some people call it Evolve Shaman. Exactly, right.
Whereas look at, something like Kalamos, which I think was a surprise to see Kalamos here. But Kalamos' deck win rate is 54%. However, if Kalamos gets played, 62% win rate. So Kalamos is the key card in that deck, and basically, like, you win decently without it, but your win rate goes way down in games when you don't actually draw the Kalamos. So
yeah, one might call him.
I was surprised to see Kalamos at all on this list, to be honest.
I was too. Kalamos, basically like the end of the top 10, like Kalamos, Nesting Rock, Jeweled Macaw, Crackling Razor Maw. I was surprised about all four of those.
Sure. And you see, too, Jeweled Macaw, while the deck is winning, Jeweled Macaw itself and Nesting Rock are not necessarily the key cards, right? Like, the win percentage goes down compared to in the deck when it's play rate or win rate when it's played. So it's kind of interesting there, like, that those aren't really the keys. They're just part of a bigger package, right? So I think if we open this up and we look at, say, like Savannah Highmane, would go up in played win rate compared to deck win rate, right? So it's all very interesting. The problem, like, you can't, if you wanted to sort by played win rate, you'll see why you can't just sort by that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because,
let's do it. Top number one,
Yeah.
Dino Size.
Yeah, what do you think the best card is when you play it? Dino Size. Why? Because you kill them when you play it.
Yep. Yeah, but
so
it's
generally when you play it, you kill them, but you don't get to play it very often.
But when the heck do you get to play? Like Kalamos, Dino Size, both 8 mana. But Dino Size, something needs to be on the board for you to do that. To actually play the damn card, whereas Kalamos is a minion himself, which is why it makes more sense that he is both high in the deck win rate and the played win rate.
Yeah. So look at a card like Molten Reflection, right? So Molten Reflection, 40% deck win rate. But when you actually play the Molten Reflection, it's 60%, and that's because it's part of an OTK combo, right? So you can't look at that and say, oh, that's a great card. Like, well, no, it makes one deck work when you draw it and play it. So not necessarily that means the card is good. Like a card, if we were opening this up to all sets, you would see that Pyroblast is, like, I think, the right next to Dino Size, because again, it's like that card only gets played when you win the game generally.
Yeah.
So this is why you can't necessarily look at this, but I love the fact that you can see deck win rate and then see the played win rate right next to it, and that'll give you like a little bit more of a piece to the puzzle, right? So a card like Bittertide Hydra, you see that its deck win rate is actually 54%, but its played win rate drops to 47%, so it's not technically the card that's winning you the game. And that's what I find really interesting when I look at these, and I'm going to decide, okay, do I want Bittertide Hydra in my deck? Do I want Living Mana in my deck? Like, are those the cards that are making this deck go? And they are definitely not. So it's going to help you when you're making kind of educated choices on tech cards to kind of figure out, which card actually belongs and which card is maybe holding you back a little bit.
Yeah. What is the question that always comes up when we talk about teching a deck? It's well, what do I take out? If you're looking at a tried and true archetype, or you're looking at a tried and true deck list, it's usually very difficult to pinpoint where your wiggle room for customization is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if you see that they're pretty close in numbers, you can say, like, that's probably a core type of card. If the played win rate goes up, then that's that's definitely like a key piece that cannot be teched out, right? And then you can look and say, okay, Living Mana and Bittertide Hydra aren't the ones that are actually winning me these games. Do I maybe drop down to 1 Living Mana? Do I not play Bittertide Hydra at all? Do I play Bittertide Hydra instead of Living Mana, right? Like, these are kind of the questions where you can really kind of start to evolve your deck and come up with it. Like, if you're someone who's interested in not net decking, because we get a lot of people who email the show and they say, I hate net decking. I don't want a net deck. I want to build my own decks. Here's a way to not net deck and still come in with complete information, or at least semi-complete information, right? Because otherwise what you're doing is you're sitting there bashing your head against the wall for like 100 games before you get any decent amount of stats to look at. And this is like, okay, here they are. Here's what everyone else is doing. Now you can kind of start to build and mix and match your own deck based on these stats. I think that's really cool. And I want to spend the kind of last half of Ungoro seeing if I can be the next guy who comes up with some crazy deck that nobody thought of, because it has happened before, So it's a super cool tool. I definitely recommend everybody go check it out. Let's look at the worst cards, by the way.
Okay, let's deck win rate and flip it. All right, Lakari Sacrifice.
Lakari Sacrifice. I don't think that surprises any of us.
To the surprise of no one breathing.
Yeah, and you notice out of the bottom 6, 4 of them are quests, right?
Yeah.
That just didn't work out. Last Kaleidosaur, Marsh Queen, Jungle Giants.
I tried to make Marsh Queen. We tried to make Marsh Queen work so hard. If you remember on launch day, we built a Marsh Queen deck with 2 Angry Chickens. We actually did pretty okay with it on launch day.
No, we did on day 1. We did great, but I don't think we actually ever got the quest done. We just smash people's faces in with 1-drops.
Yeah.
And also we were running Dinomancy in that deck. So
Dinomancy, so much. It's so fun. I want it to work, but it's okay. It's early, right? This is the first expansion. We've got these cards for 2 years in standard. Who knows what's going to get added that might actually make stuff like Dinomancy. I'm betting on Dinomancy. Marsh Queen, I'm still pretty I don't have a lot of hope for that to ever really become a thing.
Sure. By the way, Dinomancy, if you scroll down a little bit, Dinomancy right on the cusp. If you put it in your deck, 50% win rate. Hey, it's in the not terrible cards.
I'm not seeing it. I'm just gonna run a search for
Yeah, you just gotta keep scrolling down. The moment it hits 50% is
Dinomancy. 49.9% deck win rate, but a 41.6% played win rate.
Mm-hmm. It actually goes down when you play it. Whoops. Okay. Well, never mind. That card sucks.
Yep. The deck that plays it is almost good, but playing that card is not always mostly good.
By the way, if you look at the lowest played win rates too, you're getting all of those same quests. It's basically just because those get played like 100% of the games, and they clearly don't work.
Yeah.
Like you win 30% of the games you play.
Well, if you look at the
Kaleidosaur,
times they are played too, like if we're looking at the sample sizes, they're actually tiny compared to all the stuff at the top. Last Kaleidosaur, 18,000 times played. Working towards this
compared
data.
to like the top guys where it's like a million.
Yeah. The hydrologist had 1 million and change.
I'm surprised that it's 18,000. There's enough people out there still trying to make Last Kaleidosaur work.
Hey, that
there's 18,000 games.
Those 18, I want to be friends with the people who are, it's not necessarily 18,000 people. It's just games.
No. You know what this is? This is the people who never know what the hell is good. They're still playing it. Like rank 23 this deep in the season, and they just play on their phone, right?
Or they're
and they open that card.
I'm going to bring a full circle. I'm going to bring a full circle. They're streamers adapting. They're trying new things. Okay. They're trying new things. I bet you anyone watching the stream with the Last Kaleidosaur streamer are having a more interesting time. They are more surprised by what they are seeing than most Legend players, probably.
I bet, yeah. The other interesting thing too, like this kind of helps me just figure out that some cards aren't really maybe as good as I thought. Because if you notice here, Volcano in the bottom of played win rate, 50.7% of the time that the decks that it's in wins, but when you actually play Volcano, your win rate drops to 40%. So that's really weird to me because I assumed Volcano was one of the best cards in that deck, but apparently no, that card's holding you back. You probably shouldn't necessarily be playing it.
I mean, that makes me. Let me because that makes I haven't looked this up. I want to look up Yogg because this is where I think stats only can help you so much, right?
They give you part of the story, and you're still gonna have to like fit all the pieces together.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let me bring it over. Yogg Saron has a 40.5% played win rate. Which where did Volcano go? So that's
Volcano is 40
right around there with Volcano. So these are cards that you usually only play when the game is going very poorly for you.
This is true. Yeah, you're not going to play Volcano when you're winning the game. That's true.
Exactly.
But
so
a lot of times Volcano is in
way.
the deck because your deck is built to play from behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think what also is interesting is that if your deck is like if I'm playing the deck that's built around dropping big giant taunts and then giving them death rattle come back to life when you die and things like that, then that I expect to be playing Volcano at some point in that game as my way to flip the board, right? Because for fairly cheap, I can remove all of your stuff. So what this says to me is that it's not necessarily doing enough of a job of that. Like it's not necessarily flipping the board state in as effective a manner as I thought it was. So that, you know, you could make that interpretation. You could also say, yeah, I only ever play it in games where I'm generally losing the game. But your deck is kind of built in a way that it's going to be losing the game mostly at the beginning, right? So I'd expect its win rate to be fairly close to its played win rate as well, the deck win rate. But the fact that it's so despairingly different means it's the other cards that are really pulling that deck through and getting wins, not necessarily Volcano. So
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the lower end too and seeing if there's any more surprises in here. Not really.
No,
not
I
really.
mean, I like seeing where like you can look at deck win rate and it's just so different from played win rate. I think that's kind of the biggest thing to me. It's like if you can see like a huge disparity between those two numbers, then there's probably maybe something better for that slot. And that's kind of like what I've been using it for, because as I've been pushing towards Legend this month, you know, I definitely made slight alterations to my deck list. You know, I looked up how good was it to be drawing Cold Light Seer or whatever. Is that the one? What's the one that gives plus health? Is that Cold Light Seer?
That's a Cold Light Seer, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'd have to go
is
over
it
to
better? Is it better to play Cold Light Seer, or is it better to just dump that card and put in Stonehill Defender instead and play? And play just my war leaders in the 3 slot, right?
They're real close, by the way.
Yeah.
on HS Replay. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, man. Seer is the card I've been looking at because I've been playing your deck, just being like, is this good? Because it seems like almost every time I have it, it's just like, I would rather have anything else right now.
Yeah, sometimes it's like I've had definitely times where, because the way that deck works is it gets... You kind of like you want to play a 1 into a 2, and then Seer makes you able to make some trades, and your guys stay alive, right? That's I think kind of the interesting thing about what that card does. But War Leader does that even better. You know what I mean? And sometimes Stonehill Defender is just such a good card for Paladin that you just never want to not have it. And so it was taking that slot up for me. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that I've been using this HS Replay for, and I think it's just so far from what I've found. This is the site that's giving me the information in the most concise manner, easiest to sort, not a lot of work that I have to do. I can quickly reference cards in my deck and figure out where they land. So definitely, like, I recommend everybody out there, go ahead and just jump on this thing for a little while, play around, look at the decks that you've been playing a lot, and try to figure out if maybe you're playing an optimal list or not. So it's very cool to have this kind of stuff when there's not a lot of new decks coming out, because this is what helps us figure out the next step for those decks, right?
Yeah, and it's like anytime we bring up stats on Into the Nexus, we always get replies from people like, this is not the best way necessarily, and then that's not what we're saying. So I just want to stem that tide. No. Like, we are not saying this is the only way you should go out and make a decision on how to tech your decks, but it is a tool to aid you in that quest.
It's very similar to, like, it feels very similar to Hot Slugs, where I just use that to make an educated guess on, like, how I should be playing a character in Heroes, and then I just adjust from there. Right?
Yes, so. And this ties into your Hearthstone deck tracker, so you can also log into your account and see your own personal stats while also looking around at this stuff. And that's the other reason I also like HOTS logs. It keeps you honest. I could be sitting there all day thinking, I'm the best Vala in the world. And then I pull up my Vala stats, and it's like 43% win rate. I'm like, ooh, yeah. I guess not.
Yeah.
I guess I should probably start letting someone else grab
By the
Vala.
way, couple other little fun facts here. Firefly, most popular Ungoro card. 27% of decks. Most popular legendary, Elise the Trailblazer. Made it into 10% of decks. Although I kind of buy that because it's neutral, and it's out of the neutrals, it's the one that you could kind of fit almost anywhere.
No,
and the least popular.
Actually, the most popular legendary was it's just a mismarked rarity is Shadow Visions.
Oh, Shadow Visions. Yes.
Yeah. It should be legendary.
And then the least popular card, Chittering Tunneler. Makes a lot of sense. Warlock is not played at all, and that's not a card that I think would ever make it into a Warlock deck anyway. So, yeah, there you go. Osric also worst or least played legendary, even less than the quests. Kind of crazy.
Yep. I was looking at times played, not in percent of. So there we go. Yeah, Osric, Chittering Tunneler, and top Firefly, Stonehill Defender. Not surprised there. Primordial Drake. We have sung the praises of many times.
Yep. Yeah, these all make a lot of sense. These are the cards that you're seeing a ton of. Interesting that Lyra is the number one class-based legendary as far as percentage of decks. Sunkeeper Tarim right behind, but I would have definitely thought Sunkeeper Tarim, but I guess Tarim doesn't go into every Paladin deck somehow? That can't be, right?
No,
it goes into every Paladin
good.
deck.
He's even good in aggro Murlocs, because if you don't get them buffed up, it's like, oh, okay, well, now they're 3/3s, and they're buffed by my war leader.
You turn your 1/1s into 3/3s.
They're still buffed by my war leader. Yeah, I don't know about that, but the other cool thing I'm looking at now is like times played, and it's like, oh, I see a lot of mage cards. This is my hell.
Oh yeah,
this is
Primordial Glyph right up there at the top. Archanologist.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm going to keep tabs on this kind of forever. I haven't really been using this site until probably this month. I don't really know how I discovered it. Maybe it's just more part of the conversation than it has been in the past, but. Yeah, this is definitely. I'm considering going premium. I want to support these guys.
Yeah, so this is
I like what they're doing.
I have not used, and I will definitely start using now because I dig it. Let me know how you like that premium. We're not sponsored by them at all, by the way.
No, actually, we should point that out.
They have not given us a cent. Dills just thought this was kind of rad, and then upon playing around with it, I was like, oh, this is rad. It's Garrett tested, Dills approved.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should ask him for some cents.
No, there we go. Yeah, hey, HS Replay, if you enjoyed our shilling of your product here, we're always open for sponsorships. Okay. Anyways, before we move on to emails and wrap this show. Oh, my God, where'd you go? There we go. I'm messing up freaking video stuff because I'm so used to going back to the free frame overlay. Before we move on to emails and wrap the show up, let's thank our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC, where over 500 of you have become bosses of Dills and Jocelyn and myself. And you're all really nice. I haven't had to go up to any of these 500 plus people, Dills, and go, you can't fire me, I quit. Like, that's never happened.
No, it's never going to happen. They're all nice people.
Yeah, this was fantastic. But anyway, patreon.com/TAC, that is the best way to support this podcast and the three of us. If you enjoy our show, if you get some value out of it and you would like to give us value in return, consider heading over there and pledging $1 a show, $5 a show, whatever works for you, however much you would like to give. We very much appreciate it. On this episode, we wanted to thank Jason M., Michael W., Dean C., Gabriel G., and Zach R. Thank you all very damn much for supporting us. It's awesome. It allows us when things like Serial the podcast happens and blogs start writing podcasts are back, we get to go. We never went anywhere, and we're actually finally getting paid. So thanks.
By the way, too, if you are a patron, I highly recommend go check out the Patreon page because there is news there. Yeah, I might as well just say it's news about the taco because pretty soon it's going to be open for everybody.
It's this weekend, guys. It's this weekend.
Yeah. It's this weekend, but we won't really make the announcement for non-patrons until probably about Wednesday or Thursday. So if you're a non-patron, pay attention to Twitter and stuff because that will suddenly happen and then the tournament will happen. Yep. If you are a patron, go check out the page because there is an updated post there for you so that you can sign up and stuff if you want to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, if you are a patron, early access to the taco sign up. Go check it out, patreon.com/TAC. patreon.com/TAC. All right, let's take some emails and wrap this up with a pretty user-generated content bow.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com, even if Deals has gotten up to, I don't know, pet his dog or something. 007 writes in and says, "Greetings, Garrett Raging Grumps." Oh, it says Gumps here. I'm assuming he meant Grumps. I was curious about the standard rotation that exists. At the beginning of the year, 3 expansions leave the rotation for 1 new one. Eventually, 2 more arrive by the end of the year, but why not have 1 leave when 1 is released? Do you feel this would be a better meta change instead of so many cards leaving at once with not as many to replace them?
I feel like we've discussed this actually on the show before.
Have we? I actually am not sure we have this specific point, but maybe we have. I don't know. I'm not on board with this suggestion.
No. So there's a couple reasons why. One is that when there's the overturn of the full year, that is the best time for new players to join the game. All right. So if you don't do that, there's like no best time, and it's always going to be about the same struggle. And when you have this kind of like full reset or full-ish reset that happens, all of a sudden you come in and you're like, okay, I can get current pretty quickly. So it's actually kind of important, at least for like the life cycle of the game, especially when you get into the game is 10, 15 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like Magic. Magic is it's just so intimidating to become a part of if you're not already a part of. And so when the beginning of a standard rotation happens, it suddenly feels much less intimidating for that brief amount of time and allows you a window to jump in. And then once you're in, then all those other cycles feel a little less intimidating, comparatively, right? So you want to have that window open for the players to get in there. And if you don't do it this way, there's never really a large enough window.
And the big thing
that's the biggest reason to me anyway.
The big thing for me is the permanence of new cards, basically, like knowing what, like I said earlier, we were looking at Diomancy's poor play win rate on HS Replay. It was like, well, I know this card's going to be around for damn near 2 years. Cool. I know it's going to be around that long. It allows them, I think, as Team 5, at least part of it, as a developer, to know what their tool set's going to be, and they can really develop it. And yes, that would always be a consideration for Wild, but I think it gives them a little more freedom within the standard format as well.
Yeah, and I do like I like the large shakeup of a bunch of sets all going out at one time. That to me is just always going to be the funnest. Kilmornock in the chat says, if you don't do that, then any time is a good time, instead of saying, oh, it's August, let me wait till next year. I'm going to rebut that statement by saying, no, if you don't do this, then no time is a good time. That's kind of my point. Like, there's either a good time or there's no good time, right? And the people who are willing to jump in like the middle of a rotation, those people will kind of always jump in. You got to try to get the people who just will just say, no, I'm not going to do it. You got to give those people like their little spot as well, if you want the game to continue to grow. Because as the game gets older and older and older, finding new players is always going to be a challenge. It's going to get harder and harder. So you give them that window, and then they jump in.
Absolutely. So I don't think it's an insane thought to have. Makes a lot of sense. I've obviously had the thought before as well. It's like, well, if we have the most interest after something leaves and something is added, why not just have it always be that way? But I think it's just better for the stability of the game if it's a once-a-year type thing.
Yeah, and I will say, too, there's arguments to be made for both. So I don't think that anybody's wrong for thinking that maybe the other way would work really well. I just think that there's definitely tried and true reasons why card games tend to do it this way, because it does, in general, inject more into the game during those cycles.
Yeah. Anyways, you want to take the next email?
I do. Sebastian says, hello, podcasting chickens. Let's discuss card trading. I got Tyrion in my Brawl pack this week, which I already have. One of my sons does not have Tyrion, and I wish I could have given him my second Tyrion. They could trade for either gold, dust, or a selection of cards for equal dust value. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way to do this? What if players could only trade when they are logged onto the same network, meaning being most likely physically together in the same room, which is like physically trading cards in person? This would be a great way for Blizzard to promote fireside gatherings and interactions between players. Your thoughts? I think we've also talked about this in the past at some point, but probably forever ago.
We've certainly talked about card trading. I think what is unique about this one, and I know Jocelyn thought what was unique, and that's why she highlighted it for inclusion on this episode, was
the idea of locality.
Locality, and also very much specifically using it as a tool to promote fireside gatherings, which we have certainly talked about fireside gathering promotion a lot.
I do think there's always going to be kind of an argument for it, and then there's always going to be the argument against it, which is, Blizzard wants to make sure that there's not like some black market out there for their game, which there inevitably would be. Also, cards would go up and down in value in weird ways and stuff. There'd have to be tools to track all that. Their approach is, it definitely feels very Blizzard to me. This whole, you disenchant cards, you cannot trade cards. Right. And I think if we look at it a little bit from a Blizzard historical aspect, the Diablo 3 auction house, it was a major issue with that game that has since been completely murdered. I believe Dills has dog stuff going on. Yeah, he threw up
again. Iggy, man,
I don't know what it is. I think it's whatever.
I know you're excited about Hearthstone, Iggy, but try and contain it.
I know. It's like, I feel like he's just asking for attention because he's not sick, I really do. I feel like he's fine. He ate his food, and then he's just like, pay attention to me. Blah.
Yeah, this, by the way, Professor B in the chat room, is 100% the correct time to use an Iggy emote.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Tongues
as soon
out.
as you see me disappearing, you know that's the reason.
The Iggy emote comes out.
Sorry, yeah, but it is. This is very Blizzard, and I think a lot of it does stem from what happened with Diablo, right? Like, it just didn't work, and this type of thing does tend to work okay. Like, Hex has the ability to trade and do whatever you want with your cards, right? Like, I can send an entire deck of cards to somebody if I want to. They don't have to give me anything in return, and what it ends up kind of doing is it creates the ability to have like third-party sites that buy and sell cards, and they make money. So Magic Online has this. Maybe Blizzard just didn't want that. They just didn't want that for their game. They didn't want to have a bunch of third-party sites kind of controlling their inventory of digital cards. So they decided this was the best way to do it, was to allow you to then craft cards you didn't have. I do think we could look at... I think it's too late at this point to suddenly inject trading into Hearthstone. I do think that the way the model has gone for so long, it just doesn't seem like it would suddenly be a good fit. We talked previously about maybe make it so that legendaries disenchant for half value instead of a quarter value. But I see his point, because it's not like he's trying to get a card for himself. It's like, I want my son to have this card, and that's a cool sentiment, right? Like, I'm trying to get my friend into Hearthstone. What if I could just gift him a deck, right? And then he could get going.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the problems I've had trying to introduce people to the game is like, it's really cool, you should play. And then they go, all right, let's try. And then they go out on the ladder, and I'm like, well, you don't have very many good cards, but it'll be fine. And then they get smashed by legendaries, and they feel like it sucks.
Yeah.
If I could just give them a deck, that wouldn't happen.
That's how my buddy got me into Magic. Like, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. I don't know. My buddy Ben was just like, hey, here's a deck builder's toolkit.
Yeah.
Let's sit down, crack some packs, build a deck, and play against each other. And I was just like, oh,
Sure.
cool. I've missed this entirely when I was growing up. Something I always thought was kind of cool. Why don't we try it? Fell in love with it. Started playing.
Yeah.
I played in every pre-release that year after I did that.
Without that experience, you probably would have never gotten past. Like, if you had just tried to go to the store by yourself and buy some packs, and then figure it out.
Yeah,
like that would have maybe happened, but would have taken a lot longer.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting perspective. It's an interesting solution. I think at the end of the day, the boring answer is that any trading allowed opens up a black market, whether it is localized or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just allowed trading over BattleNet or whatever we're calling it now, Yeah, that's the largest black market that's going to happen. But even if you had to be on the same network, if you had to be at the same location, if they did everything in their power to even like GPS and on top of your network, including all of that, there's still going to be a black market. It's just going to be a local black market.
Now, what if this happened, though? What if they limited it to localized trading, and they limited it to you could only trade even value dust for dust. You could only trade cards you have more than the needed amount of, right? So you can't just trade cards you just don't want. You can only trade extra cards. Like, what if it was like, if you have 2 Tyrions, you can trade a Tyrion for the other guy's other legendary card that he has 2 of, and that's like it limits it completely. So that it's literally just a way to fill.
It's still not completely limited, because I might have Osruk, whom nobody would pay money for, but I would definitely pay money for a Tyrion and still give them my Osruk.
Yeah, but maybe you could go to a Fireside Gathering and just be like, who's a completionist who doesn't have Osruk and has an extra of something else, right? Like,
well, you could.
It would encourage like going around and talking about it at least.
I mean, you could, but again,
the
the chance for money to be exchanged for a service outside of the Blizzard ecosystem is still there and would definitely still happen. And if that's one of their concerns, which I'm sure it is, on top of there being money exchange that is having nothing to do with Blizzard being another big concern, I'm sure, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm just spitballing, like, here's ideas, here's ways you could
I like that one a lot.
Limit it so much that it doesn't really ever get outside of the client, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably what they're worried about.
At the same time, this is one of those things where I'm just like, I don't really care. I'd be totally fine if they just opened trading up and there was a black market, because there's one for Magic and it doesn't really impact me.
No, it's actually totally fine. And one of the huge advantages of having that black market is that if I want a deck, I could go out and just get it, right? And I don't necessarily have to open a bunch of packs. That being said, there is another thing that happens, and I wonder if Blizzard has crunched the numbers on this. On Magic the Gathering Online, I have never just bought packs, like, ever. I've never just gone on there and been like, okay, I'm going to buy some packs, right? I have always either, well, I guess I technically have bought packs when I buy tickets to, like, a draft or something, right? I'm technically essentially buying 3 packs, then entering the draft. But, like, I've never just gone on there and been like, I'm buying 50 packs of this new set, and I'm just going to open them all up. Every single time I've just been like, okay, I want a Reanimator deck. Okay, I want a blue-white, whatever deck. That's what I want. And then I go find a store. Some other company has it. It's always a little bit shady.
Yep.
And I go, all right, I would like this deck, please, this pre-built deck. Thank you very much. And then I go and I play it. So, there is that. Maybe Blizzard knows that the impact to deck or to pack sales is significant enough that it makes a monetary difference, and they're not going to make that step.
Yeah, no, I agree as well.
I don't know the numbers behind all that, but
yeah, there's no universe where does not impact their decision. But clearly, anything taking place outside of their ecosystem also impacts their decision, because we saw the auction house just be removed entirely from Diablo, and you can only trade if you are in a party at the time of the item dropping. So
yeah,
and that's a game where there is no real way to pump extra money into it unless a Necromancer gets released.
Yeah, for $14.99.
Yep, which I'm totally buying. I think it's too much. I don't care.
I know. I'm
still
buying it
anyway.
Too.
It's more than I'd like, but whatever. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the show, and hopefully to the end of Vicky's vomiting. Thank you again, patrons. Patreon.com/TAC. Everyone over there supporting us. Huge thanks to our producer patrons, Declan H, Peter Williams, and our newest producer, Michael N. As always, find more Angry Chicken on amove.tv. The entire back catalog is there. You can also find it on youtube.com/amovetv. See us in motion and our silly faces. We are on Twitter at TAC Podcast. This is the Twitter for the podcast. And you can catch us live usually on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/amovetv. But I would like to remind you that we are traveling next week for Nerdtacular, so there will not be an episode Tuesday next week. We're going to try and squeeze one in Monday before we sit on top of our suitcases to get everything packed in. Might we maybe in a way luggage suitcase, awaytravel.com/TAC. Anyways, Dills, where can folks find you when you're not cleaning up dog vomit?
It's finally clean. Twitter is at Willie Dills, twitch.tv/WillieDills. We'll be making the Legend push here over the next few days. Hopefully it just happens today. I mean, I'm only a few stars away, but if I do find my way into Legend, you'll be seeing me probably meme it up in the Legend ranks once that happens. Or maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where I land. If I land high enough, maybe we'll like try to get into that top hundo or something like that, which would be kind of fun. But just check me out there. Lots of Hearthstone, and recently been playing a little Player Unknown Battlegrounds on the stream as well.
Of course you are, because
of course
everyone is.
It's fun, man. Do you have it? Have you tried it?
No. I liked DayZ, and this just looks like DayZ without the zombies, and I would not like it without. I can just tell I wouldn't like it without the zombies.
Well, they're adding zombies later, but
yeah, and they're player controlled.
This is more focused around that modded version, which everybody ended up playing, right? Which was the battle royale, which wasn't part of the actual game when it came out.
Yeah, well, DayZ itself was a mod of Arma 2. And
yeah,
it got its own release, and then there was the competitor, which name
there's H1Z1.
H1Z1. Yeah. That was the competitor that came out shortly after DayZ, if my timeline is correct in my brain. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
But
this one does that version of the game, like that style, the battle royale. It does it better than all those other ones did. Because I did try H1Z1 and DayZ, and they're both just like all those mechanics were really clunky around that.
Yeah,
so it's just because it wasn't really what the game was built to do.
It's one of those things I've convinced myself I will not like, but I don't know, maybe I'll do some on the Angry Nerd where if there's enough requests, maybe the audience over there could force me to try it.
I'll tell you this, if you and me and Joss and like Scott Johnson or somebody else got in and played a game, you would have a lot of fun.
I'd have a lot of fun.
Squads is where it's at.
Any PvP game where I play with Scott Johnson is fun because it's worth it just to hear him yell "shit" at the top of his lungs.
Sure.
It's my favorite thing in the world. Scott yelling shit. I love it. It makes me laugh, giggle.
It's like
every
still
time.
Unexpected even at this point, even though I know that he swears, right?
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason, I just convinced myself Scott was a guy who never swore. That's totally not true. I don't know how I ever thought that was the case.
No, Scott swears all the time, especially in games.
Yeah.
Especially in
filthy
games.
mouth, that's Scott.
not as bad as like you or I, though. I think when we're kind of unfiltered.
No. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty good on the podcast, but
yeah,
catch me outside. How about that? I'll be swearing quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Anyone who is tuned into my rare Friday streams knows I cuss a lot when things don't go well for me. I am a salty sailor. Anyways, folks, I am on the interwebs. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter, 2 R's, 2 T's, and Garrett. I hope you know how to spell art. Everything else I do can be found at amove.tv, including that solo show that I just mentioned, The Angry Nerd. My latest episode from Friday is up now. Talk about what I thought of E3, what game I am the most excited for it from E3. Spoiler alert, Battlefront 2, surprisingly, really just got me hyped. I'm very ready for that game. But check it out, The Angry Nerd. Every other podcast I do is found over there as well. That is going to wrap it up for this episode. Make sure you give Jocelyn a follow on Twitter at JossPlays. And check out all of her podcasts like The Gamer's Den, which can also be found on Amove TV, while she's off adulting. And until next time, as always, job's done.
Job's done. Yes!